Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Brad. If this is your first time on the channel, I want to welcome you over. I am a sim racing commentator who also kind of talks about real life stuff every once in a while. And I only really do it if it's something worth talking about. But I thought I would start with, yeah, Red Bull said it's emergency podcast time, and feels like there's a conversation that needs to be had. If you've been not on the loop the past, well, we'll call it 72 hours at this point, hop on F1 Twitter for a little bit. Go see what your trending is, because mine is interesting and it's kind of chaotic. And yeah, so buckle in. This is going to be a bit of a ranting video. There's a little bit of frustration for me in one subject and just a little bit of confusion in the other. But we're going to hit on the highlights of what's happened in the past 48 hours in the world of Formula One. So buckle in, let's talk about it and see what kind of fun stuff we can get into. Started off with this yesterday. Formula One statement regarding Andretti Formula Racing LLC application. The conclusion of the commercial assessment process. Now, for those of you who don't know what a commercial assessment process, this was the other half for Andretti Formula Racing to join Formula One. This was the side of them saying, commercially, does it make sense? Statistically, the answer should be yes, with no question. And we're going to kind of break this down. We'll get into this. We'll kind of go through it. So let's go over some of what is in this. So let's zoom in here so everybody can see. So on 22nd of March 2023, the FIA sent out an invitation to teams and said, hey, if you want to be the next team in Formula One, you want to be the 11th team on the grid, send us an application. We want to talk about it. 4 teams responded, Andretti Formula Racing, of course, being one of them, in partnership with GM Cadillac, which, if you're a fan of IMSA, you're not surprised by that. I wasn't personally. And then FIA said in October that they were satisfied by the application sent in by Andretti Formula Racing. And this is what kicked off the chain of events. So FIA then goes through and they send things forward, and Formula One media then says, okay, we want to talk to everyone about the process and we want to see where you're at and what things can go through. Now, what was in this process letter, the commercial assessment, I don't really know, to be honest. And that's something that somebody can probably answer for me, but I don't know what was in that. And then they say that they sent out on the 12th of December extending an invitation for in-person meetings that wasn't taken up on the offer. I don't know if this is true or not. I don't really know if that was actually sent through. I presume it is based on that. However, it's interesting to me that they didn't take up the in-person meeting, and I have to wonder why. Anyways, this will go on to talk about the reasons why they say they didn't let Andretti in Formula One. As I answer this, I'm going to kind of touch on some points as we go. So, obviously, there's the assessment process, and somebody might be saying, okay, well, the FIA said that Andretti can be in. Yes, the FIA is one half of this. The FIA is the sporting delegates, and they're the ones that set the rules for Formula One. They are the ones that kind of set things through. The commercial right holders, Formula One media, or Liberty, are the ones that are in charge of the money. They are the money side of things. Going to come to play a point in a minute, in my opinion. Now, let's talk about the review process. So they take into account the broad range of ways in which value is provided, including to fans, the prestige and the reputational value of the sport, the competitive balance of a championship, and the sustainability goals of the sport. So I want you to consider the teams on the grid. Haas, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, AlphaTauri, or Racing Bulls, whatever we're calling them, Stake, Alfa Romeo, whatever. Okay. Value to fans, the prestige, the reputational value of the sport. Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, Stake F1 team that has to have a different name in certain regions where gambling rules are more strict. The competitive balance of the championship. Okay, Red Bull won 95% of races last season. And that's coming from a diehard Red Bull fan. Sustainability goals of the sport. Okay. Benefits of applicant in terms of fan growth and fan engagement, as well as review of equivalent materials. Fan growth and fan engagement. Andretti Formula Racing. Okay. And some of this does make sense. Consultation with stakeholders to understand the views, the value applicant would bring. I understand you need to consult stakeholders. Consideration of operational impact on existing circuits of adding an 11th team. Okay, that all makes sense too. Like, I understand that. Consideration of impact of financial results. Consideration of financial sustainability. Okay. Now, let's get to the controversial bit here. Our assessment process established the presence of an 11th team would not, in and of itself, provide value to the championship. The application contemplates an association with General Motors that does not initially include power unit supply, with ambition for full partnership with GM in due course, but this is not the case for some years. Having a GM supply attached to the application at outset would have enhanced credibility, though a novice constructor in partnership with new entrant supplier would also have significant challenges. Most of the attempts to establish a new constructor in the last several decades have not been successful. New car in 2025, 2026. Okay. That's F1 team. Okay. We don't believe there's a basis for a new applicant in 2025. Formula One and the pinnacle of world motorsport, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls Stake F1 team, presents a unique technical challenge to constructors that the applicant has not faced in any other formula or discipline that it's previously competed in. Formula E, IMSA, IndyCar. Anyways, so conclusions of your assessment. We don't believe the applicant would be a competitive participant. The need for any new team to take power unit supply, potentially over a period of several seasons, would be damaging to prestige of the championship. You literally have customer teams now. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. While Andretti name carries recognition for F1 fans, our research says F1 would bring value to Andretti rather than the other way around. What? I'm sorry, but I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to let you contemplate that. Okay. Here's my issue. Here is the overarching issue for me. We would look differently on an application for the entry of a team into 2028 with GM power units, either as a GM Works team or GM customer team. In this case, there would be additional factors to consider in respect of the value that the applicant would bring, in particular, the respect of bringing a prestigious new OEM to the sport as a power unit supplier. But yet we talked about up here that they're going to bring GM in the future. But you're saying you want to wait. Okay. What? Make it make sense. Someone make it make sense for me, please, because it doesn't. You cannot make that make sense for me. Where does it make sense for you to say, okay, Andretti, not yet, but maybe in the future, if you bring us some more money? Why not just let them have a go? Let them swing at it. Kimi Räikkönen literally almost bankrupted a Lotus team. because they took a swing at it and they said, Kimi, here's a contract, go. I don't claim to be the most up-to-date F1 fan. I don't claim to be the most up-to-date motorsport fan. I'm very, very much just a guy who enjoys racing, both virtual and real. But this has to be a joke, right? This entire thing has to be a joke. But nevertheless, here we are. And the response, the backlash was stunning. It was immediate. Everyone was upset. Marco Andretti. Okay, here we go. See? This is the fun. This is the novice motorsport fan coming out of me. And the Andretti's literally tweeted and said, I don't have words to say. I don't... how do we answer to that? Even the Andretti's were I don't know what to say other than disappointed. And then in class, Andretti said they continue to work on their car at pace. Which tells me there is a further conversation to be had here. This is not the last we've heard of Andretti Formula Racing in 2024 or 2025. So keep your eye on Andretti Formula Racing. There is more to come out of it. Now, let's jump on to the other side of things here. Let's zoom this article, this headline in. Hamilton to make shock switch from Mercedes to Ferrari for 2025 season. Yes, this is official. Lewis Hamilton, who has driven with Mercedes for as far as I have been an F1 fan, and said he was going to finish his career out with the Silver Arrows, is now going to replace Carlos Sainz, effective 2025. And here's the thing. We haven't even had car launches, and we already have silly season it. Now let's talk about it. Hamilton has been there since 2013, has won 6 of 7 world championships, crossed over 100 wins with Mercedes, has been a Mercedes driver forever, says this is the hardest decision he's ever had to make, but yet he did it. BuzzFeed made an article about F1 Twitter today. That's how big of a deal this is. 11 years he's been a fan. But here's the thing. He's going to jump 2025 on a multi-year contract. Now, what does this tell me? This tells me something big happened in the background. For him to go from mid-season with a contract, for him to pull his exit clause out of his contract. I don't know the specifics of that exit clause. I tried to look things up. I don't see it. But the exit clause was pulled. You got to think, he's had a winless 2 seasons. It's been very, very painful to be a Hamilton fan and a Mercedes fan. And now he's jumping ship to Ferrari. And Ferrari in class once in its statement. This tells me that they weren't ready to make this public either. That this leaked somewhere that they weren't ready for. But apparently this has been in the works for weeks. From what I understand, this has been there for weeks and ready to go for weeks. So, what is it that caused this to announce now? What is it that brought all this out? And Toto Wolff says, Lewis's relationship has been the most successful. Lewis is an important part of Mercedes motorsport history. And they say this is a natural end, but it's not. This is Lewis pulling a clause in a contract to exit the partnership. So what is going on at Mercedes that makes the Silver Arrow, jump to Ferrari? What is it? The lure of Ferrari itself? I mean, Seb said it best. Everyone's a Ferrari fan, even if you say you're a Ferrari fan. Ferrari is synonymous with Formula One. Formula One media talked about they see more value to Andretti than Andretti to F1. Ferrari is F1. Ferrari literally makes additional money for being Ferrari from Formula One Championship. Don't believe me? Look it up. So, like, there's this. And then signs, flat fact, I'll give my absolute best for the team. News about my future in due course. That last sentence, along with Andretti's statement of we continue to work at pace, there's a lot behind closed doors that I want to know about. There's a lot behind closed doors. So, keep your eyes on the Formula One season. Keep your eyes on Lewis and Mercedes, on Sainz and Ferrari, and on Andretti, and see what happens. Because this is going to be a spicy season. And if you're a newer motorsport fan, or you just don't want to go as in depth as some people go, stick around. We'll see. We'll see what things come out of this, but I'm sure there's going to be more, because you don't just drop something like this the week car launches are starting and not just have absolute pandemonium. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.